Hi, everyone. Welcome to Stream Queens, a show about our reactions and responses to the best original content streaming right now. I'm your host, Shani B.
And I'm your host, Robert. Today we're talking about the new Peacock reboot, Firestarter. If you haven't seen it, it's based off of Stephen King's 1980 novel and a direct remake of the 1984 movie starring a very young Drew Barrymore. To sum it up, it's about a couple desperately trying to hide their daughter Charlie from a shadowy federal agency that wants to harness her unprecedented gift for turning fire into a weapon of mass destruction. Her father taught her how to diffuse her power, but as Charlie turns 11, the fire becomes harder and harder to control. When a mysterious operative finally finds the family, he tries to seize Charlie once and for all, but she has other plans. So, with all of that said, what did you think of this movie?
Well, I will come out strong and say I really didn't like this movie. It's boasting a 12% on Rotten Tomatoes, which I found hilarious right before I started. And I thought, oh no, that can't bode well. But I went in trying my best to be ready. I love the 1984 one, or the 1980 something one. I'm not sure. 84. Yeah, I love the 1984 one. I love Drew Barrymore and what she did. And I love the graphics and the effects and everything. So I was like, this should, by all accounts, be good. It's a great story. I love Zac Efron forever and ever and ever. And now they just have computers. So shouldn't it be the best? And I really felt super disappointed in the filmmaking. It was so fucking dark. It was out of order in a way where I thought, if you haven't read the book or you don't know the original film, you're like, what the hell is going on? It just felt really, really messy. I mostly have negative things to say, which makes me really sad because I love Zac Efron so goddamn much. But what about you? Before I rip this movie apart forever and ever, why don't you say something positive? Did you like it?
It definitely was not like anything I thought it was going to be. I went into it with zero context. I knew it was about a little girl who could, I guess, create fire. But other than that, I didn't really know anything about it. And I'm just really familiar with the 1984 movie poster with Drew Barrymore on it. So with this one, I was like, oh, cool, it's the same thing. But I didn't realize like the parents have powers. I didn't realize like it almost feels like Alex Mack. Do you remember that Nickelodeon
Of course.
TV show? It was like Alex Mack. Kind of makes me thinking about it now out loud. I'm like, I feel like Alex Mack totally took this storyline and made it into a TV show.
Yes.
It was an awesome 1990s like Nickelodeon TV show. But it also reminded me of Carrie a little bit. But I didn't hate it. I just didn't. I think because I went into it with a blank slate, I didn't really know what to expect from it. And I haven't read the book and I haven't seen the original, so I have nothing to compare it to.
Damn, I was really, really hoping that you had read this book because I felt like the variation between the two films just left me being like, what am I missing?
Really?
Yeah, it really made me feel like I must be missing something from the book because these two films don't really fit into the same kind of reality. And frankly, I kind of wish, I wish you had rewatched the 80s one so you could compare the two.
I know.
Only because Drew Barrymore is so good. It's just like how Carrie, the Brian De Palma version, he's trying to help you see the conflicted internal problem that Drew Barrymore's character is having, right? He's showing her struggle with this idea of knowing she has this thing inside of her, but that she's a good person. And we didn't really get to do that with this little gal because we were maybe too excited about how she could get really angry and then punish everybody with her fire. While, of course, Drew Barrymore does do a version of that, it's much more about her reluctance to become a villain. And this one just felt sort of like it was a villain origin story.
Yeah, like the girl was angry.
Totally. Understandably, but that's why I was sort of like, I don't know what to make of this. I was hoping for better writing, for one. The writing seemed really shitty, just in terms of like, why are you guys saying these things? What are we even getting across in this story? And like, again, why did you change the characters in this new one? Because that's the thing that's so strange to me, is that like, all the people that they recast to include people of color are all the bad guys. So they purposefully, the places where they should have left the old white dudes so that we could appropriately think of them as the monsters they are.
Yeah.
They were like, actually, let's recast a very scary but talented indigenous guy. And so he can be the very scary bad guy. Let's get a Black woman to play the head of this agency. Like, it's just such a bummer because all these people get to do is show up and be villains. And sure, they get a lot of lines and they're in the movie more. But the one in the 80s, the dude that's the assassin that's coming for Drew Barrymore is such a fucking freak. And I kind of hate that we sacrifice this creepiness because we're trying to make visibility. But that's why I wanted to know what was up with the book. Because I wondered if, like, is the 80s one just like crazy racist? You know, like, was the book much more diverse and the 80s one kind of whitewashed it? And that's why, you know, I am inappropriately relating to these characters. But fuck, neither of us have read the book.
I mean, I could probably read it now for sure after seeing the movie, but I'm usually drawn to his scary stuff. Pet Sematary, The Carries. So this one definitely isn't up my alley, but I definitely do wonder, like, how close these are to the book. Like, was the 1984 movie very close to this 2022 one?
It wasn't, but that's why I'm wondering what's up with the book.
Okay.
Because the 2022 one was a lot different than the 80s one. It sort of picked up where the 2022 one would have been after the first act. So we never get to meet Charlie's mother. In the 1984 one, we literally pick up with them on the run together. And the elderly man that helps them, his wife is alive and well at their farmhouse. And they basically stand together with Charlie and her father. You know, he isn't like a bad guy who's done something terrible. Like, every chance they had to take something that worked in the original and then elevate it, they just changed. And I don't understand why. I'm really not sure why. So the best benefit of the doubt that I can give them is maybe that's what the book called for. Maybe.
I mean, maybe. I feel like with any change like that, there's got to be, I don't know, a reason for it. I only can compare it to like the Carrie one. There was a 1970, I think, 8 version, a 2002 version, and then the 2013 one. And they were all kind of the same story, but the made-for-TV one was the closest adaptation of it and the best, in my opinion. I think the acting was really good. I think the little girl on this was really, really good. I was a little shocked to see, not shocked. I don't see why I say shocked. To see Zac Efron in a dad role, which I text you about. I'm not ready to get there yet with him, but he's old enough now. Realistically, he could have had a kid at this point that's this age.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely one of those things where I'm like, okay.
It's amazing because I think the more you and I watch and review movies, the more we're going to watch people's careers shift into different parts of their life, which will be very, very funny. But I agree, you know, every time Zac Efron is there, he pays the pretty boy tax because he is, you know, attractive and usually takes his shirt off.
Yeah.
But he tries so hard to be grounded here. He's working so hard to play a father, to be present in a way where, like, early on, there's like a scene between him and the mom when the mom is sort of being like, you know, what happens if she gets angry with us and kills us? And he has such a naturalistic reaction of like, don't fucking, you know, go there. And
yeah,
that kind of performance is exactly what I showed up for. But the movie gets lost down these other pathways of what felt more like TV storytelling. I think that's another piece of this that really bothered me is it felt way more like a TV movie than like a studio film.
Yeah. And I think that, you know, as we continue to see more streaming movies come out, a lot of them do walk that line. Like, what kind of production are we going to get? You know, are we going down the route of this is like a major motion picture that we just happen to be putting on TV first and streaming?
Yeah.
Or is this, you know, what does this budget look like? Or is this really kind of like a made for TV movie?
Right.
So I agree with you there. It definitely gave off those vibes a little bit. I mean, it was still good, but I think that's something really interesting we're going to start to see a lot more of. Like, which path did they really take with this? Is this like a Spider-Man in regards to budget, or is this like Carrie 2002, like made for TV?
Exactly. I feel like that's what's so great about us varying across all the streaming platforms and trying to see what each of these streamers has to offer. Because I think still, especially with this Peacock one, I was so surprised. Obviously, they send all their new Halloweens straight to Peacock also, but that's kind of cheating because it's an established property. And I think you know where I stand on those films. I wouldn't consider them to be anything special.
That's the thing too. I think, I actually forgot about Peacock having the Halloween Kills on it. Or it was Halloween Kills was the last one, the big one they did. I was surprised Peacock got Firestarter. Like, I think it's as all these streaming services start to compete with each other, it's interesting what they come out with. And Firestarter is a big one, in my opinion. I think that, it definitely, any sort of Stephen King novel that's doing a remake, it definitely carries some weight with it. I was surprised Peacock got it. I mean, maybe it would have been different on a Netflix or a Hulu or HBO, but big for Peacock at least,
Totally. But I feel like Peacock should do better because they own Universal. Like NBC Universal is Peacock. So they own that studio. They have for a long ass time. There's not really an excuse to make bad movies unless they make bad movies. It feels like rather than serving the original story that Stephen King was writing and trying to explore people with their abilities being tested on and never being free, they kind of go down the Stranger Things route of she's a monster. She's got to learn how to control her powers so she doesn't become a monster. But it's really hard because she's about to go through puberty. Like, Stranger Things is nailing it. So I really wish Firestarter would have just stayed in its own lane.
Part of me wonders too, because I see the parallels there. Would we have thought that if Stranger Things hadn't come along, taken Firestarter and done it better?
Ooh, that's a very...
Because, I mean, you got to think too now, like Firestarter 1984 was amazing for its time, but Stranger Things pulled inspiration from so many different areas. They definitely, took the best of everything and did it better. So now I wonder... I don't know. I always wonder with remakes. Did we want this? Who thought of this?
I think you're exactly right there, that the whole point of this reboot is to try to get in the space that Stranger Things has opened because Stranger Things is so clutch, but they just missed the opportunity of honoring what they already had.
Yeah.
The Drew Barrymore one, there's hilarious parts of it, but it definitely holds up. Her chemistry with her father and what her character's trying to do, her chemistry with all the adults, the variation in the fact that they do work to be a little bit more respectful and considerate of her in the original. And we don't really engage with any of that kind of stuff in the reboot. All the grounded stuff that, again, Stranger Things is able to examine in this sci-fi context. I guess I just expected Firestarter would do the same, or at the very least, try.
Yeah. It could have for sure been worse. Like I said, I came into it with zero expectations. So I was like, okay, this is cool. It's not my cup of tea, but I mean, it definitely, I think it was cast well. I think the writing was a little off, but I almost want to go read the book now just to see, and watch the original to see where things were different.
Mm-hmm. I would say definitely watch the Drew Barrymore one first so we can just personally talk about it together because I want to process that one. But if you can read the book, that would be even cooler. And, if anyone listening has read the book, please slide into my DMs and confirm these things for me because I want to know and I don't have the time to read this book, especially after I wasted the time watching this very bad adaptation.
Read a book.
Yeah, I guess there were just too many things that didn't make any sense to me. I didn't know why we had to change the situation that was happening at the farm with the couple. I'm not really sure why we had the school experience at all, why she was at school or they showed us any school stuff. If you're really afraid that the government is going to find your kid, you don't fucking send them to a public school. You straight up just don't do that.
Yeah. I feel like that was I'll probably almost put there so we can see a little bit more of, I guess living in this day and age, trying to fight who you are a little bit.
Totally.
I think. I don't know.
Right. It's sort of I need to know if these things were there in the book or not so I can appropriately take qualms up with them. But I can really only draw on the adaptation that Drew Barrymore is in. And I think it's one of those things where they show you that she's already attempting to control it. So either they skipped over the stuff in the school because it would have been hard for us as the audience to come back around on her in reality. Because by the end of this movie, she kills a shit ton of people, in the Drew Barrymore one included. She starts throwing fireballs in both. So as a character, we need to still root for her. And I feel like it's a lot easier to root for Drew Barrymore and what she's trying to do with Charlie than this gal who doesn't want to be bad, but she's so much more of a modern young person who's I'm so bad, but fuck everyone. And I don't love that.
Yeah.
Moment of truth. Would you recommend this movie? Will you be telling the folks out there to watch Firestarter on Peacock?
I'm indifferent. I'm such a sucker for like a remake of any kind. I think if you too are a lover of remakes and a fan of Stephen King, definitely check it out. I'm not gonna say no, but like I said, it just wasn't my cup of tea. What about you?
No, I will be recommending the 1984 version so that you can go spend time with a young Drew Barrymore and watch a cool sci-fi story, because oh man, I could barely sit through it. I'm still mad at it, so I definitely can't recommend it.
Which says a lot, because I feel like you watch a very broad spectrum of movies. So I feel like for you to not like a movie says a lot about the movie.
It's true.
And Zac Efron's in it, and it's great acting.
It's so true. There were so many things here that should have been able to help me stay optimistic, but man, I just couldn't do it. Really wanted better. So this one will be a pass for me. Like I said, I still can't believe how bad this movie ended up being, but I am interested in what else Peacock might do. And I am curious to see, what the next big movie they release is, and if it's going to be good, because at a certain point, the streamers are going to have to make good movies to get us to sign up. And I'm just like waiting for that.
So two things. One, it's very interesting that Universal owns Peacock. I completely forgot about that. And I love that they're kind of, going down this avenue with Blumhouse of doing scary movies. Like we got Halloween Kills, we got Firestarter, both from the same production companies. So
Yep.
Now I'm kind of wondering, is this what they're trying to do? And if so, I absolutely fucking love it. But I also wonder, do you think we're going to get to a point now with theaters and everything that we move away from streaming again? Because we got into it for a hardcore second, and now I'm kind of like, are movie theaters going to be a thing of the future again and not so much the past anymore? Like, it'll be interesting as things begin to open up. I mean, we'll see this summer exactly how things go.
I think no matter what, we've moved away from a traditional cable box model, right? We still want TV, but we're doing it streaming. And so I think it's a matter of like, they're going to need to keep us there. And the thing is I go to the movies all the time, but that's me, right? The average person, even if movies come back and they're really good, is still probably going like once a month.
If that.
The average person. That's 3 weekends that they might be home and able to watch a movie on your streaming service. And if they're in the mood to watch a movie and your streaming service has nothing good, they're not going to watch it. So I feel like at a certain point, they can't just rely on the backlog library, because HBO owns what it owns, Peacock owns what it owns, and eventually they'll all just have their libraries. And that'll only go so far.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah, we will see.
Okay. That about wraps it up for us. Thank you again for listening to Stream Queens and for breaking down Firestarter.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Queens of Stream to stay up to date with all our shows. And personally, I'm at RobAlex86 and she's at Shani B Movies.
Yes. Thanks again, guys. Hope to see you next time on Stream Queens.